10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
And now, coming live from the Midwest Racks and Rod studio, it's the Outdoor Show with your host, Scott. I just have a little wrap around Bisco Bang. And Drew, he's a potato, you all know that, but he's French fried Bisco Bang. With our producer, Luke Ortman, PBR him ASAP, with special in-studio guests, Ben Krebs. Just a little wrap around.
Just a little wrap around.
A little wrap around. Cheers, genitals.
Time for a little drinking poo. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoor Show. We are joined in studio tonight by our good friend Ben Krebs. How's it going, Ben?
Going great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glad to have you. We've been kind of talking about this for maybe 6 months or so.
Roughly.
About having you on and that, and then a particular hunt came up, and it was like, ooh, this would be a good one to talk about, eh?
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a lot of fun.
Before we get into that, though, we got a little word from our sponsor.
And tonight's episode is brought to you by Tagged and Bagged. They specialize in pre-taxidermy packaging for waterfowl. Their mission is to provide hunters with the highest quality packaging products to ensure preservation of a hunter's prized trophy. Tagged and bagged products are made with the best materials and are designed to withstand the toughest hunting conditions. Pre-taxidermy packaging is used to preserve your waterfowl before sending it to the taxidermist. At $20, just $20, that includes shipping, folks. You'll receive all the pre-taxidermy packaging that comes with easy-to-follow instructions that will preserve your waterfowl for the taxidermist. Go to taggedandbag.net. That's right, folks, taggedandbag.net for all of your pre-taxidermy preservation needs.
Thank you, Drew.
I gotta take a breath.
Make sure you guys check them out. So, yeah, Ben, welcome.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. This is could be a good conversation today.
You think so? I hope
think so.
We'll see. It has nothing to do with you.
Has literally nothing to do with you
That has
whatsoever.
more to do with us. So we want to apologize. Last week we had a bunch, or not last week, the last episode.
Yes.
We had a bunch of technical difficulties. We think, we're not certain, but we think we narrowed it down. It's one of those things like, I mean, we're hunters, we're outdoors people. We're not super techie.
No.
I mean, we've been learning this as we go over the years here. We're coming up next month, or it's February 1st now in March. It'll be 4 years.
4 years.
4 years of this garbage.
Oh, my God. For all of you that have stuck through for the past 4 years.
I mean,
Bless your
changings
soul.
of software and just, I mean,
Hardware, software,
software, all the wares.
limpware.
Have you gained any followers though in the 4 years, or is
A
it gone?
couple.
Okay.
A few,
There's
yeah,
been a couple. I mean, we have there's like 3 people that are really loyal to us, and they're all on the team. But
Loyalty pays off. Just throwing it out there.
right, you get to be a part of the shit show that is Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors. But no, honestly, it's one of those things. Like, you know, you said you came in here like, wow, I can't believe, you know, there's all this stuff going on in here with the equipment and stuff. And like I said, we're outdoors people. Like, this is kind of out of our comfort zone a little bit to get in front of a camera and get behind a microphone and try to learn the nuances of the techie stuff, you know. So it's been a work in progress for us.
At the core of what we do is very much what we enjoy, though, right? And that's by having fine guests like yourself come in. We get to sit down and talk about things that we are passionate about, that you guys are passionate about, that everybody out there is passionate about. and that's everything outdoors.
Exactly. When Chris and I started this 4 years ago, it was a cell phone. And then we got some wireless lapel mics and stuff, and we did a couple interviews with a phone call conversation with the microphone right by the speaker on a phone, and so we've learned some things, and we've struggled in that, but the one thing I will say I'm proud of is that we've done it on our own here.
Right.
We've been figuring it out. And we appreciate those of you that have stuck through the trials and tribulations.
Yes, which there have been a few.
There's been a few. But anyway, so we're hoping for a really good show and good audio quality tonight and no mess up. So, Luke, what do we got? We got 2 thumbs up so far. We doing good?
Hey!
All right.
Thumbs
That's what I'm
up from
talking
Luke.
about.
You know, to come in here, though, as a couple outdoorsmen, and to see this in the studio is great. You guys are doing your hair and makeup, and then I come in. I look great without it. So
I know.
You know, you guys needed the work, but you're doing it. You're putting
Well,
it
Sheila
on.
just left.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you, Sheila. They look okay.
We appreciate all the hard work you do to making this look good. But yeah, she asked you. She's like, well, you know,
She doesn't need
you with a
anything.
little blush there. like I don't know if there's much skin behind that beard,
Right.
which is much shorter.
Yeah, I definitely trimmed it down.
It is much shorter. Ben had. I mean, did you actually measure what your beard was before you shaved it off this summer?
I never measured it. It was, it was down.
We're about the belly
Almost to
level.
the belly button, but not quite.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. But yeah, again, thanks for joining us here tonight. And so one of the things we really wanted, or one of the reasons why we really wanted to have you on is because you just partook in a awesome buffalo hunt.
Correct.
Kind of one of those once in a lifetime
Yep.
type opportunities. And we'll pull up some pictures here in a little bit. But why don't you go ahead and first off, why? What's the why? What made you decide that, hey, you know what, I want to go kill a buffalo?
That's a great question. So 20 years ago, I went out west with a guy. We went out to North Dakota. We were whitetail and mule deer. And we get to a bar, and this guy's talking to us about buffalo. He's like, hey, come on over to my house. Come take a look at this. Kind of weird. You just meet this guy at a bar, but he's a hunter. So we go to his house. He's got an addition the size of this studio. And it's just filled with buffalo heads.
Oh, wow.
And he was Native American, too. So he shot everything with a longbow. So automatically, I'm like, man, I got to do this. And just the sheer size of them.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, I'm like, this is kind of what I want to do, and started applying, and you start applying, and you start applying, and then all of a sudden the realization is I'm never getting this tag. Mm-hmm. So then there's other alternatives. You can go to ranches, and that's where the research really comes in. There was a lot of work to this. So,
Okay, so back to real quick to the applying. So that would be free range buffalo then in that. And I would imagine there's a limited quota
Right.
on that. Like do you know what that quota is?
Offhand, no, I don't. Randy
it's
Newberg
probably
would be the
pretty
guy. he would tell you, but no,
Sure.
I don't know offhand. And when they say free range, are they free range? No.
Yeah.
They're getting the ham sandwich from the guy at Yellowstone Park who puts it out his car window.
Sure.
They're licking the salt off the bumpers as people are, rearing up through these parks.
Right.
Sure.
They're not free range, and they're all touched by hands of people.
So you're talking like out west, like Yellowstone. And
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, but that's not what you did.
No.
Okay.
Mine was a private ranch.
Okay.
And when you think of a private ranch, you're like,
So it was like 40 acres. It was just, they were all penned up, right?
a lot more than that.
I mean, that's, because we're going to get those kinds of comments or,
Right.
there's going to be some sort of preconceived idea when we say ranch, right?
Right.
So it's 40 acres, okay, maybe 50 in that high fence, and you just got to get them cornered and walk in, right? And
That's
then
what
it's a
people
done deal,
think.
right? Yeah, absolutely. So what is it?
So the particular ranch I went to, and out there you never ask. You never ask, hey, how many acres do you own? How many buffalo do you have? Because that's like asking somebody, how much do you make? You just don't do that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Fair enough.
So with this, I kind of got to know this guy. And I kept on talking to him, and I got the ballpark. He's in the 20,000-ish acres. So we're talking a big chunk of land, just a tiny little piece. And, yes, there are fences. There's barbed wire fences, but mind you, if those animals want to move,
They're gonna. Yeah.
they're not going to get stopped by that.
First off, they can go right through it. Second, those things can jump straight like 6 feet up in the air.
I thought that was a fallacy. until you actually see them move, yeah, they can jump.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Time out.
It's like watching a car jump.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
It is insane what these animals can do.
All right. Well, in my defense, I at least knew that turkeys could fly. Sorry, Mike. I had to.
No, so honestly, like if for those who are local to our area here, we have the Sloan Wildlife Sanctuary,
Yep.
which has now become like basically a zoo. I mean, he's got
Right.
tigers and bears and wolves and lions and, kangaroo. I mean, he's got freaking kangaroos now and stuff. But back in the day, it was primarily white-tailed deer, some elk, and then the buffalo.
Yeah.
And it used to be a wagon ride through the whole thing. And, the big thing, the big rule was, when the buffalo come up alongside, do not touch them because they will slam into the trailer. I mean, they could jump into the trailer and that. I mean, and he said straight up, like these things can jump 6 feet up in the air. I mean,
That's wild.
It is wild. They are wild.
Like you said, it's seeing a car literally jump.
Right, right.
Yeah, like a Prius just jumping up in the air.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the sheer size of them, it's weird. You would never think they can move like they do.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
All right. So 20,000.
20,000-ish acres.
Ish, give or
Yep.
take 10 or 20. All right. Go ahead.
Where do you want me to go from here?
So,
I
all right.
guess?
So, how did you,
You want to talk about how to vet out a guy? Because that would be a big part.
well, no, your story. Go with your story here. So, like, you started researching out where you could hunt.
So I did the applying, and I realized that was just never going to happen.
What is the average, like, how long does that take? I mean, because sometimes bear in Wisconsin can take like 10 plus years.
It's way beyond, and some people never see that. So I've heard of horror stories, guys, 25 plus years.
And how much does it cost to apply every year, too?
Depends on the state. Certain states you got to pay for the tag up front, which can be upwards of $3,000, and then you'll get
And then you might never even pull that tag.
right, but you'll get the money back.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So you'll but there's a fee to this.
When you're dead.
Of course, there's a fee to it.
Of
right.
course, it's like $100 some bucks, and
Yeah.
so you
It's
do
always a
that,
fee.
and then you're like, okay, I'm wasting time, I'm wasting money. So I started calling people and doing things and going this different route of ranches, and I realized that if you call a guy and you get all of his information, and you call him a year later and you go, all right, how's your hunt go? His story can change. Oh, well, we hunt this. You'll get to this much meat. You'll take home the head. This guy says, no, you won't take home the head. So you start calling people, and you get a list. I think I had a group of like 10 people I was calling. Mm-hmm. And I think 6 years ago, I locked into this guy. I was standing up by the pool. I'll never forget. Had the guys working on the house, and I called this guy, and same story every time. Hey, this is what we get. This is what we shoot. He wasn't BSing me. Some of these guys just want you in their door. They
But he
want
was
your money
consistent the whole time.
every time. And then you start reading his Facebook feeds, and you start reading his stories that he has and his emails, and everything is spot on every time. Guy's phenomenal at communication. I'll give him that. Like he can really communicate. So right there, that's a big thing for me with a guide. So I think it was a little over a year ago. I locked it in with this guy. Put a down payment down. You have to do 50% down, non-refundable. So understand that right away that it's not refundable. So put this money down. We're committed now. Now we're full steam ahead. You got to remember there's an added on cost to this.
I mean, there's no if you ended up with COVID or something like that,
There
or
is
in the
none of that.
hospital, it's just it is what it is.
Yep.
Okay.
So you better just, maybe do insurance on yourself or.
Right, because there's that option too. There's like travel type insurance.
And
kind of
I
a thing.
struggled with that. So if anybody knows or can find it, send that information over this way because
Okay.
I reached out to my sister who's a travel agent. Mm-hmm. She could not find anything because when you're in a high risk hunt like that, those animals are considered high risk. So your grizzly bears, your polar bears, anything in the Yukon is considered a high risk.
Yeah, it's a dangerous animal.
Most insurance companies won't cover you. So I was not able to find anything. So it was one of these where let's hope nothing goes wrong.
Right.
And that's something that, can easily be overlooked. Something that, the average Joe might not think about. So that's definitely good information to have.
Can you give us a ballpark on what the price is? I mean, I'm
Well,
sure
you
it's
want
gonna vary.
door to door. So from door to door, everything's said and done. That includes your taxidermy, your meat processing, your tip for the guide. I mean, super important tip your guides.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's a total tool. But otherwise, tip your guides. I mean, come on.
right.
These guys are working hard for you.
Right, absolutely.
And this guy was phenomenal, top notch. Tip your cooks, do all that. So everything door to door, including that all inclusive. I hope my wife's not
I was just
listening.
going to say, is Sarah watching?
It's like $1,000. No. You could probably tack another 20 onto that, so close to 20 by the time everything's said and done.
Wow.
You know,
And that, again, why it's a once in a lifetime, for most anyways.
Right.
I mean,
That made my palms sweat a little bit.
right.
Not my money.
So if you're going to do this, I think the biggest thing, find your guide, then be better at home. Do more for your wife. Do more things, because when you ask for this hunt, you're asking for a lot. So you better be doing all the dishes.
all the brownie points.
Yes.
That's even better advice than the get the travel insurance or try to find travel insurance.
Yeah, so love your wife, do lots of things. If you don't have a wife, well, you're a free game, man. Just do whatever you want. Or woman, free woman, do whatever you want.
Right?
Scott, Sarah Biskobing says your wife is watching.
Oh, no.
So,
Love you, babe.
So both of our wives are Sarah's, and coincidentally enough, my wife is his cousin. So
Yep.
we're both. So Sarah and Sarah are both. I that's what I'm taking out of that. They're both watching. So
Okay.
so as you were saying, it costs you like $8,000, right?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
roughly
as you were. Okay.
$8,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So you do all the research,
continue.
you get everything set up, you're getting ready to go. A couple days before you call this guy, he gives you all the fine points. What do you got to do? What you got to wear? Kind of that typical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You got to watch the weather, though. The weather's different here than it is out there. So we went out there like
And
days.
yours was in South Dakota.
Correct, South Dakota. So you kind of watch it and you're like, all right, they're not getting snow. They're kind of the same as us. I call him, he's like, we got a fair amount of snow. You're going to want to, bring some stuff along. I'm like, what do we wear? He's like, buy some Tyvek suits. He's like, they blend in perfect. You'll never be spotted in them. So I was thinking, all right, we'll get that. So Sarah and I, we did this race. We got all the Tyvek suits and got them shipped to the house. And, my son came along on this hunt, which was probably one of the best things you could ever do. Take your kid with when you're hunting.
Yeah.
Just do it. It didn't cost me anything extra.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
It was great to just have him there to communicate with when I was getting tired while driving, because it's a 10 and a half, 11-hour drive, something
Sure.
like that.
From here in Southeast Wisconsin, yeah.
It was just great for him to communicate and talk to and have somebody to be there and support you. And plus the idea was I was going to let him finish it, or at least start it, get this thing going, because you're going to shoot it a couple times. So
Sure.
anyway, we'd start trekking out there. We get out to location, and I immediately knew right away, just calling this guy, just the way we would communicate. I'm like, hey, I'm a couple hours away. Do you need anything? No, really appreciate you asking, though. Just a nice human being.
Yeah.
Drive past his house, because I always do that. I drive past my location to see what's around. Go past this guy's house. Gorgeous home. Well maintained, well manicured. So this guy takes care of what he does. Mm-hmm. So automatically everything is starting to ease, because you get that tension when you're pulling up to somebody else's place.
Absolutely.
What if he's got a rusty old piece of junk truck and then the thing doesn't start, and then, well, your hunt's going to start later, or we're going to have to cut some time out. No, this guy
playing
was
a banjo on the right. Yeah.
Well, this dude
It's like
would.
Deliverance,
He was a huge musician.
but not like Deliverance.
Well, that's a totally different story. But no, we get there. The guy's he was really funny, comically. He had these massive chops, kind of looked like an Elvis wannabe.
Okay.
Apparently, he played in a band, but really nice guy, really hyper energetic. Could never sit still.
Yeah.
But when you're in that type of industry, you're never sitting still.
Right.
And he doesn't
There's always
hire other
something to do.
guides. So he is the one guiding you. You're not dealing with some guy's teenage kid that he hired off the street and pulled out of a bar. So this guy is legit, wants his customers to do well. So
Do you want to say who you went with, or do you want to?
I don't think it would cause any ripples. So Jim River Guide Service.
Sure.
He also does, I cannot think of the Alaskan service he does. So he does Alaska as well as South
wow.
Dakota.
So does he have a place up in Alaska?
He does.
Oh, wow.
So he runs his own business out of there doing grizzly bear hunts. So that's another adventure I'd love to do.
Right. I
Okay.
mean, and two different, kind of different ends of the spectrum too. I mean,
Right.
predator versus, a big game
Right.
meat animal.
A bus.
Table fare.
Table fear.
So yeah, we get to this guy's place, introduce ourselves. We go through the whole rigmarole, and he's got this massive home. not by, it was just well put together, put it that way. He had a nice game room off of it, trophy room, however you want to call it. We go downstairs, that's where we bunked, had a massive TV down there, you know, plenty of bedding, plenty of comfortable spaces for us, our own bathroom, shower, kitchen, you name it. Then they serve you this incredible meal that his daughter prepares. I mean, what a hardworking woman this is. She is 18 years old, still in high school.
Oh, wow.
And she's doing fine cuisine. I've never eaten food like this before. I love my wife's cooking. This was pretty good, though. I mean, it was top notch, and some steak and everything else. And
Nice.
yeah, we did the old buffalo tongue.
Okay.
I didn't like it. Jim, I know I told you I did, but man, I really didn't. It was awful.
How was it prepared?
It was pre-cooked. And then what they did is they had it in the fridge and they just sliced it.
Have you ever had beef tongue?
No.
Okay, so I haven't. I like it.
Really?
Beef
Warm or
tongue,
cold?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine. Well, I guess I can't imagine it could be different.
So it's got a meaty top to it, and then the bottom is like a real mushy, mushroomy.
Spongy.
Yeah, it was
like
weird.
like a mushroom, yeah.
Yeah, it's the consistency can be a little
Luke's over there going,
mushroom.
he's a big mushroom guy. That
So no, I wouldn't recommend it personally. I didn't care for it. Abel didn't like it either, but to them, they love it. So everyone that comes out there, if you don't want to take it home, they're taking it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Fine, by all means,
More
Jim,
for
enjoy.
And you got to try it at least.
More
once,
for
right?
you.
Yeah, even with the heavy paste of horseradish on it, I'm like,
Wow.
no filet mignon there. So
I mean, I've had it pickled as well, beef
Okay.
tongue and stuff. I don't know. Now, mind you, I've also was under the influence of some beverages each one of those times. So
Water will do that.
That could water could do that. You know, that could play a part in it. But
So a wrap around.
so now, how long was the hunt? Like, how many? What was the? How long did you have to get it done?
usually, so he's pretty good. And he says he'll get it done the first day. There are 2 days in case you don't. Because some guys made mistakes. They either didn't shoot well, they didn't stalk well, they got busted, they got winded. But we got it done the very first day. So
All right. Well, so tell us how.
this is where the story
How it
really
played
gets good. So we get up normal time. You know, you're not in a hurry to get out there because the sunrise out there was quite a bit later. So we got up at 7. 8 o'clock is when it was finally getting light to where you could see. And their big thing is you don't want to spook these things because if you spook them, they don't just go like a whitetail. They don't go 300 yards. They're going miles.
Sure.
Okay.
So, and their hearing is phenomenal. You know, so we want to find this thing first, and then we want to decide where we're going to park and how we're going to stalk it.
That's interesting that you would say they're hearing.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about a whitetail or an elk, you know, big telescoping ears, you know, that
All
can
this
rotate.
fur around there, you know, I can't believe they can hear anything.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like do they even have ears? You know, when you think about a buffalo.
Couldn't find them.
Like where is the ear on a buffalo? You know, where they have actually pretty big eyes
Oh yeah, their eyes are massive.
in that. So you would think that would, I mean, and obviously any type of, hooved deer type animal, whether it be deer, elk or moose and that it's their sense of smell.
Right.
I would imagine they got a pretty good sense of smell, pretty comparable to
Yeah, I would
some
say
of the other game.
they're pretty good. I wouldn't say they're as good. Their sense of smell probably isn't
Not
Like a whitetail.
It's not like a whitetail. Okay.
no, and they're not going to be afraid of that either. They're going to smell you and go, whatever.
Yeah,
You
right.
really don't matter. Just move along.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
the size of a Volkswagen bus.
Right. You know, you close a car door, but that'll alert them. And then if one takes off, they're kind of like, hey, that idiot's running. We're all, let's follow that guy. So it's no wonder they all jumped off the cliffs.
Right.
But as we drove out there, he gave me a really good explanation. He says, everybody's going to talk about this hunt that you're hunting a cow. And everybody's going to be like, you know, it's so easy. And they're going to talk bad about it. As we're driving out there, I'm kind of like, yeah, this kind of seems like it's going to be a cow. You know, it's not.
Okay.
These things are so wild, and they never touch them. They have no idea how many they have. They just throw some hay out there, let them do their thing. They just graze. Mm-hmm. They're not out there shooting them with needles to make sure they don't have diseases or anything like that. They're not tagging them. They're not marking them.
Right.
And some of these, like I went for the super trophy. So that's the biggest you can get. Those are the ones with the most aggression, the most rage. Everybody in that whole group is like, we don't want to be around this guy. So those are the ones that, you just want to hunt those and leave those ones alone. So, yeah, it's...
So when you're saying this, so the 20,000 acres that he has, is it fenced? I mean, you said it's just like barbed wire in some areas, and that it's not 20,000 acres of high fence where these are his.
No,
that he
they are his animals,
but they could go off of his property too.
Absolutely.
So, it's semi-free range to an extent.
When you're talking
20,000 acres.
It's pretty free range, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, that's a large.
And you'll get roads in between there, and then there's a crossing for them, so they'll cross. So you could be going to church on Sunday, not paying attention, and
how do they know where to cross? I've always wondered that. I see the sign "deer crossing." I'm like, how do they know the deer know how to cross?
Yeah, they don't get that.
Bigfoot usually follows his Bigfoot crossing signs.
So they're very lazy animals. They just want to graze. They just want to feed. So they'll follow a line. So they'll get onto a fence and they'll just follow this line down and, there's an opening. Let's follow that. There's no pattern to them. Mm-hmm. They just kind of do what they want. This is their turf. This is where they go.
Right.
Then they begin to learn like, okay, there's an open well here for water. So let's walk that way. Let's get some water. Let's go back this way.
Sure.
So they're just grazers. They know how to move. They know how to get places. But they're not going to go over a fence just because, hey, that grass looks greener. They're going to be like, I'll try to walk around. Let's get over there slowly.
I can if I want to.
Right.
But I don't want to.
There's food and water over here.
Yep.
Sure.
So yeah, we drive out there and this guy's giving us the explanation. He's like, all right, so when you get in there, this is where you want to shoot. And he's telling you, follow up the back of that leg, go halfway through the body. Don't go any higher. Stay that halfway. The heart's right there. You go any higher, you're going to spine it. Good chance that, you'll hit it and drop it, and then we could have bigger problems.
Yeah.
Because they can get back up and take off. Then he's telling me, we've shot one in the lungs. The thing took off. We couldn't find it for days. He goes, well, we shot it the next year. It's like cancer on there, and it actually cured itself. So there's the lungs in these things. I mean, when you take them into consideration, you're talking like a 55-gallon garbage bag for a lung on each side. Right. So you put this little pinhole from a bullet in there. It's like getting a little cancer spot or a little blurb on them, a little scar. That'll heal. They've been hitting the heart and they heal. I mean, these animals are just insane.
And then you think about Native Americans back in the day. I mean, that was their main source of survival. I mean, they used the bison, the American bison, for everything.
Yep.
I mean, they used the meat, they used the bones, they used the hides,
right?
And that, and you're talking with homemade stone arrowheads and
when we get to the processing part, this is where it gets really cool. But so our hunt starts out. We're driving out. We get to this spot. We pull the truck over. He's got a trailer, 20-foot trailer hooked up. We unhook the trailer, and he's like, "Just remember, we got to be super quiet." So we're closing the door, doing everything right. We're cranking this trailer out as slow as we can, undoing the pins, trying to be real quiet. And he's talking to other guys on the ranch, like, hey, where have you been seeing him? Where's this rogue bull? You always want the one that's by himself, because otherwise something's going to go wrong. You'll shoot this one. Well, everybody in that group is mad at him. So when he hits the ground, everything's coming over there to gore him.
Oh, okay.
And it is a disgusting thing. If you ever can YouTube it, look it up. I mean, these animals are tough, and they beat the snot out of each other.
Believe that.
So we find this rogue after talking to all these guys, and we were doing loops back and forth. And he asked, he's like, this is the one we're after. We see it. We're like 2 miles away. He's like, how do you want to get this thing? What do you want to do? I said, let's stalk him. Let's go down a tree line. And you could see they do all these windbreaks out there, because otherwise it's miles and miles of just wide open. So we find this tree line, and he says he's probably going to go into those trees. Let's get in there and let's follow him. So that's what we did. We all get out of the truck. We're donning our Tyvek suits. We got we're really safety conscious, which to me was the best thing ever. They took my son, just grabbed a hold of him and said, hey, this is how you carry a gun. This is how you do things. He's like, you don't worry about your son. We got him. He's never going to get hurt. He's with us. So they put him in the middle of the pack with us. There was 5 of us walking out there. So the main guy, Jim, the guy who I always talk to, who does not hire anybody. Then it was myself behind him. Then my son was behind me. The guides, I believe it was his uncle. Okay. And then his daughter was at the very tail end. And she's carrying sticks, and she's got all sorts of stuff, just helping out, doing everything they can. Everybody's carrying a gun. So If one of these things come at you, everybody's shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So as we're
What
walking,
did you say you were using?
I shot with my 7mm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I had a 162 grain bullet. So on the smaller end for a caliber and bullet for the animal that size,
I would say so.
it was right there at that tail end where we probably should have had a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So, but as we get out of the truck, we get everybody ready. We're all in our Tyvek suits. We're zipping up. We're getting ready to move, closing the doors quiet, crossing a fence. We're walking in. We can see this thing walking back and forth. And to me, it looks massive. I'm like, this is insane. I can't believe I might have an opportunity at this, thinking, this is never going to happen. We're sneaking through the trees, and he goes, oh, everybody stop. And we see this huge bison out in front of us, and I guessed it was 200 some yards away. He's like, oh, that's a big female. We don't want her to run into that bull. Let's all stand here real quiet. She takes off, running, goes the opposite direction of the bull, which is a good thing. The bull never saw it, didn't chase her. There was none of that. So we start sneaking to get in further after this thing goes away. We get up. I estimated like 300-400 yards from this thing. I can see the steam rolling off his nose. I mean, this thing just looked tremendous with this big old mop on his head, the great big horns.
Yes. Yeah.
And I said to the guy, I'm like, I can make that shot. I can do this. I can do it. It's pretty easy. And he's like, are you stupid? That's a half mile away. I'm like, there's no way that's a half mile away. And, being in Wisconsin, we don't ever shoot that far. I'm like, it's 400 yards. I guarantee it's 400 yards. So he's telling me it's a half mile. I'm thinking, this guy is full of crap. So I turn my watch on and it beeps, to start. And he turns and looks at me. He's like, really? We going to have this? So I said, no, it's just a one-time beep. We walked, sure enough, 0.65 miles.
Wow.
I thought it was 400 yards.
Just because of how massive.
Because of how big and how open everything is. Everything looks so different out there.
Sure.
And like I said, at that distance, at a half mile, we could see the steam coming off his nose. You could see the water dripping off his face. I mean, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, you failed to mention that you were an Army sniper.
Right.
What are you, crazy?
Right. So as the stalk gets closer, he's like, everybody's just going to do exactly as I say. You're going to stay in a line. You're going to do everything we say to a T. Otherwise, we're going to screw this opportunity up. Because as he was walking, he was getting to an open spot. But they had scratched a pond out. So there was like this small little berm, maybe 15 feet tall. And this thing was going behind the berm. So when it got behind that berm, we took off running.
Yeah.
All five of us were running in a straight line. And all of a sudden, his daughter comes flying around in front of me, and she's like, gun on the sticks. Right away, Abel standing next to me, and he goes, Abel, when your dad shoots, you shoot. So thinking this is going to happen right here. Well, then it turns out this thing had kind of veered off. And now it's like 150 yards. He's like, can you make that shot? I'm like, I got this thing all day. Just tell me how far it is.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's 150 yards, maybe 200. Can you do that? I'm like, absolutely. He goes,
Sure.
I'm going to get this thing to turn. So just be ready. Abel, be ready. And Abel's my son for anybody who doesn't know that.
Right.
He's 13.
What's your heart rate at this point?
So I got a weird
pretty
thing.
calm?
I'm super calm.
Yeah.
Probably more calm than I am on the show. Afraid I'm going to like fart or something here.
It's been known to happen.
No, I'm actually pretty calm. When I get into that moment, everything just kind of fizzles away. Nothing matters. So I'm calm, click safety off, do my thing. I'm ready to go. The guy just goes, "Brrr," like he's calling for a moose. Sure enough, that thing turns. I didn't give it a second. The minute that thing turned, I hammered it. Well, with the recoil, I didn't know what happened exactly, so I jack another round in. And the other guide's like, which would be his uncle, he's like, hey, Abel, fire a shot at it. And now the main guide is like, you need to hit this thing again before it gets up, because I dropped him like a sack of potatoes.
Okay.
Wow.
Whether it's because I hit him clean square in the top of the heart, or whether because I spined him because maybe I shot a little high, we don't really know. Doesn't really matter. He hit the ground.
Yeah.
So Abel takes a shot, and he unfortunately missed. He was super excited. This poor kid, he's 13 years old. He's never had a chance to kill anything. I shouldn't say he had a chance. He's had chances, just hasn't gotten it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First shot, he fires and misses. So the other guy's like, we got to get a shot in this thing. Somebody shoot. So I hammer one, and without thinking, I just send another round right behind it. So I got 3 into this thing, And I know they're all good because when he's on his side and he's like this, you just got a clean shot. He's not moving. So
Right.
Yeah.
had 3 good rounds in him. And then I said, Abel, it's time to start firing. Well, he had 4 more rounds to go. So I don't know what happened with him, but he just started letting lead fly. And that little stinker, I mean, I'm sure he was shaking all over and
Oh, I bet.
cold as could be because
Oh,
it
yeah.
was actually really cold that morning.
Of course.
And of course, we weren't used to it because Wisconsin didn't have any cold weather.
Right.
Right at that time, right?
So, we're all doing our shots, and then kind of an annoying thing. We were sitting there, like Abel and I were just shooting a bull, and the guy's like, "Watch that thing stop talking. We can talk afterwards." I get it now why he was like that, because if those things get up, they're going to go 10, 15 miles, and then we're in a real problem.
Yeah.
Chasing an animal across this prairie. So he's like, "Just pay attention. Stop talking. We can talk when it's down."
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, "It's already down. We got like 7 rounds in this thing." Well, it started to get. We thought it was getting back up. Realistically, it might have been doing its death kick, but I hammered one off without anybody telling me to, and the guy's like, "Whoa." He didn't have anything covered his ears. And he was like right next to me. He's like, "Well, you're ready." So the 8th round, that was it. Then we stopped shooting then. We kind of sat there and watched it. And then maybe 2-3 minutes, we slowly walked in, and the guy's like, "I got my gun." He's holding a 375. And he's shooting like some 220 round bullets, So he's in front. He's like, "We're going to go up. You're going to take that barrel and jam it as hard as you can in the butt, just in the back leg." So I do that, and then he's like, "Now go around and get it in the eye." Well, I mean, the eye is bigger than I don't
like
even
a
know how to tell you all, but it's like a
Yeah,
softball.
it's like a
yeah.
softball.
You're thinking you're going to go up and touch this little thing. No, it's gooey and like hitting a bowl of Jello, and it didn't move. And then after that, it was like, then everything, I started to melt after that. It's like,
Yeah.
holy cow, this actually, whoa. The whole thing took like maybe an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. I mean, the stock went perfect. I mean, I could go into much more detail at that stock, how it went, and how we had to keep stopping, but everything aligned. We had the wind blowing in our face. We had the perfect trees to walk through. There were these little cedar trees, so we could kind of creep behind those, and
Sure.
So everything
everything came
just
together.
beautifully.
Yeah, and it was great that Abel was, without him there, I don't know, maybe the thing could have got up and ran forever. So I'm so thankful that he was there and that he hammered it 3 good times. He's like, "Dad, I really didn't do that good." We found out somebody put one through his head. I think that was Abel. He was so excited. Granted that distance is like 9 feet from his head to his chest. Abel probably swung that one a little far right.
Sure.
Drilled him right
You
square in
can
the side of the
pull up
head.
some of those pics.
But how cool is that to be able to share
Luke,
that
if you want to
moment
pull
with-
those up.
with your son? I mean, that's
Right.
That's priceless.
And what I wanted to do, I really had the idea of Abel's going to shoot first, but the guide's like, you got to get that first lethal shot. And he's
Right.
like, "You're the guy to do it." And of course, I shoot and I drop it like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Just why did that happen that way? But maybe we wouldn't have gotten it otherwise.
Right.
Maybe this thing would have taken off and we never would have got it again.
You can't question a successful hunt.
Right.
We got a picture up right there.
Good Lord.
So I got some healthy sized hands. I mean, they're not tiny by any means. I got my hands at his hoof, like right where his hoof is. It takes both my hands, and I still can't touch.
Wow.
And this, it just doesn't give it any dimension here.
Jeez.
Sitting on a 20-foot trailer, 8 feet wide. Had to get hauled out with a tractor. And that's a nice thing out there. Everything's flat, super flat. I don't. You guys, I got a picture of the heart. Did I send you that?
No.
I wish I would have had a picture of this thing's heart because my son ended up holding that, so that was kind of cool. We'll get to that.
That is
You
a
might
great
have showed me
picture.
that picture at Christmas, but
Yeah.
That is awesome.
so did you get a weight on it?
We estimated it, what did he say? It was like 1,900, 2,000, somewhere around there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just absolutely insane how big the thing is. And so everything after that happens super fast because there's a lot of hair in there. There's a lot of heat to this thing's body. So if you ever shoot a bear, they say within 2 hours you want that skin off. These things too, you want to get that skin off. There's, a good inch of fat to it, and extra skin on top of it that you want to get off that hide.
Yeah.
Plus the fat on it. But the fat isn't in the meat, it's just on the outside of it. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get this. We call the rancher. He comes over with the tractor. He loads this thing up. As you can see with that picture, they get it on top of this trailer, and now we're driving 45 minutes to get to a processor. and get this thing into the processor. And that was a neat process, how they do this, how they clamp its feet, they drag it in, pick it up, drop it onto this like V-shaped rack, and they start skinning it. It's a father and son, I believe.
Okay.
Family Pride Meats, I think it was called. Really great people. But when you watch an animal this big get skinned out in probably 3 minutes, and I'm talking skinned out, then they're raising it up, cleaning out its insides. You know, it was really impressive.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
I don't know. Can I talk about its insides at all, or is it kind of a...
No, yeah.
Okay, so they get this thing up, and if you've ever had this done before where you butcher a deer while it's hanging, and you just kind of let everything drop out.
Yeah.
So from the diaphragm back to the intestines and everything, that filled a 55-gallon drum, plumb full to the top. And then the blood that comes out of this thing, it's just pouring and pouring and pouring. I mean, it's insane how much there's there.
That is absolutely nuts.
Yeah. So yeah, these guys, they skinned that whole thing, all the legs, all the way down, caped it, did everything, had everything ready to go in about 7 minutes. So then they got this carcass there, and the guy's like, how do you want to cut it? He tells you, on an animal this big, that old, you don't want steaks, you don't want chops, you don't want roasts. They're pretty grainy.
Yeah.
So on the inner loins, you want those. So I think on the inner loins, we had maybe 8-10 pounds out of just the inner loins. Now a whitetail is what, pound?
Yeah.
Right.
So in comparison, I mean, it's quite a bit bigger.
You're not even talking the backstrap.
No, the back straps, they grind. You don't want
they-
that because they're so hard and solid.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
see, the back straps, you don't even keep those.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say you don't keep them, you just grind them.
Right.
So everything was ground. But when you get the cape down and you get down to the head and they take the head off, it took 4 grown men to pick this thing up on a trailer that's about the height of this table. So you're picking this thing up 4 grown men to pick this thing up, and it took everything to pick that thing up on that trailer.
To pick what up?
Just the head.
Just
That's
that.
yeah.
cool.
That's what I thought you said, but I was like,
No.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and then from there, you got this head sitting on the trailer. You know, every time you always think, you're like, we should really strap this thing down. But out there, nope, just go. The thing's so heavy,
shit ain't going
it's not going
anywhere.
to roll anywhere. And we get into this taxidermist shop, and he's got a garage where he opens it up. And as we walk in, we're walking on these salty blankets, covered in salt, and they're kind of furry. And you walk all the way into this guy's shop this way. So he's got all the body hair and the cape and everything else laying on the ground. I'm sorry, it's not the cape. The cape is hanging off of a post, but they got the whole body, all the rest of the hair, everything else that you're making into a blanket or whatever, laying on the ground covered in salt.
Okay.
So they drag this thing in there, and then they separate the head, and they do all this other stuff. And so from this, I'm going to get I did get all the meat. I will get back a skull that they'll put a reproduction set of horns on.
Okay.
And then you get the actual horns on your mount, and then you get your mount, and then we did we tanned the whole body here. So we'll do it into like a rug, or maybe
Yeah.
we'll make it into a jacket or something. I don't know.
So you get the skull with
A pimp jacket.
Pimp jacket. I'm not going to wear it into a capital, I'll tell you that much.
I encourage that behavior. So the replica horns are on the mount,
On the skull.
on the skull.
Yep.
And then the real horns are on the.
Mount.
Got it. Okay.
So and that was kind of a cool thing too. So you talk about mounts. I went to this taxidermist. We're looking at his stuff, and I mean these things are big. So I said, how big do I need? What do I need? He's like, this size lag bolt will work perfect. This is what you want, a lag bolt into a wall. I said, how heavy is it? Well, it's 90 pounds. I said, how much room do I got to have? He's like, it's 3 feet wide, 4 feet tall, and 4 feet off the wall. And it's super hard to picture that, but take your hand, stick it to the wall, and it's your whole arm and your body
Right.
off the wall. I mean, it's massive. So
You
now,
got a spot cleared out? Yeah.
my wife's bear's got to move. But that's going to be lower now. Now it's not so high, so it'll come down lower and it'll be closer. We can see her bear so much easier. So I did that for you, Sarah. That's all for you.
That's awesome.
Loving music.
So, I started following this, the guide service, and I forget what was it again?
Jim River
Jim
Guide
River
Service.
Guide Service, and that, and right after yours, after you had posted and stuff. So I'm like, because I want to see stuff or whatever. Boy, he gets a lot of backlash.
He does.
Like, there's a lot of hate coming his way.
So much.
And I'm assuming that's because of the whole idea of like, well, they're almost extinct or whatever. What are the numbers of American bison? And obviously, this is one of those deals where these are his,
Right.
you know.
Well, it's not his. It's a rancher. So it's not his personal animals. So
Okay.
But either way, so he works with ranchers. Numbers, it's kind of a hard guess. They don't even know themselves. These guys, they just have their animals, and again, it's a taboo conversation. You just don't have that. So
Yeah.
let them do their thing, and I'm completely at peace of what we did. Everything about this was authentic. There was nothing made up on this.
Right.
And Jim, the whole thing, the whole setup there that Jim River does is just phenomenal.
I guess what I'm getting at though is that there's a reason why they have the hunts. I mean, if these animals were truly endangered,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to do this. So there's X amount out there that are owned or whatever. I mean, at one point in time, I believe the herd was down to like 800.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that,
In
you
history,
know,
that
like-
there was a time of that. Yeah.
But that's not the case anymore.
No, and I still would say the numbers aren't great, but you could turn this onto a political effect of they want these bison away because they carry a disease that can affect cattle. Well, cattle carries a higher price tag for most people and farmers, and
Sure.
but the funny story is the cattle actually brought the disease over. They were able to rid it. Now you can't get it out of the bison because they're so wild. So how do you ever get rid of it? Mm-hmm. And I'd butcher the name if I tried to tell you what it was. I'm not even going to try.
Sure.
Read the book.
It's in the book. It's on the interwebs.
Yeah.
The dark webs?
No, just the regular interwebs.
Okay, I got on
You
the
said
dark
that completely
webs
wrong.
once.
You got to whisper it.
That was scary stuff.
Skids.
No, that's amazing. And what a cool experience to share with Abel, your son.
Yeah.
That's probably the best part of it.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
So, how did he react to the whole thing? Like, when you guys went home, like, I mean, was he like just fired up?
He was. It was hard to get him to go to sleep.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, he was really jacked up.
I mean, it's a memory that you guys will share.
Yeah.
Your lifetime, his lifetime. He'll be telling that story for.
Well, even better, he's going to get the mount.
Oh, wow.
He'll get that when he's got to get established, get his house. Because once he gets established, I'm downsizing, and it's getting out of my house. It's too big. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be gorgeous, and I'm going to be super happy and super proud of it. But
I mean, you have a lot of mounts in your house.
yeah, we did pretty good. So
I mean, you're a quite accomplished deer hunter, and you've gone out west, mule deer, and
didn't get one, but yeah, I went.
you went elk.
No, I've not done elk yet.
You haven't done elk.
No, that's on my bucket list.
That's Adam. That's your brother.
Yeah,
Same.
Well, let's go. Let's
God, that.
lay off the Fritos and let's go.
Hey,
I resemble that.
round is a shape.
Yes, it is.
That's awesome. I mean, what a cool experience to share with your son.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal.
And
You know,
that's part of why we hunt, right? Is all for the experience. I mean, there's many reasons why, but it's definitely one of them. And when you get to share that experience with somebody that you care about deeply,
Right.
that has that same passion for it, right?
Right,
For lack of a better term, that's everything. You know?
And it would have been so much better. I think the only way it could have been better was having my wife and daughter there.
Yeah.
Now my daughter's not into hunting. I wish some way we could make her change, but she's not into it. She's not designed for it. She doesn't want to be a part of it. But
That could change though too. at
she's
some point.
respectful of it. I'll give her that. So hopefully I can keep pushing that way. Show her the women in the industry who are like, they do well and
We've had some on the show.
respectful.
I mean, your wife, her mother. I mean, she
Yeah.
hunts. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, that could definitely change.
We hope. And then, that just would have added to that experience
Sure.
as a family event and just how much she likes this food compared to our venison.
Yeah.
I made meatloaf the other night. Thanks everybody who gave me recipes, by the way.
Yeah.
So we made meatloaf and I was surprised. She went back for seconds. And usually she's pretty hesitant with meat. She's not a big meat person and she absolutely loves it. And the things that we make with it, she loves it. And I think there's a disconnect away from
It is amazing meat.
It is.
I mean, buffalo is.
Oh God, yeah. Now, how much did you bring home?
Oh man, let's just say 500 pounds. I think that was close, somewhere in there, something like that. So
That is a ridiculous amount of meat.
it is. It's crazy because everybody's like, "Oh, that's really not that much."
No,
Oh, my
that's
God,
a
yeah.
ridiculous amount of meat.
Because
20
even
freezers do you
people I
have?
talk to at work, they're like, "Oh, that's all you brought home." That was a 2,000-pound animal. I'm like, well, kind of do the math.
Right.
On the back of the head, he's got 1.5 inches of skin, and then he's got 4 inches of fur, and then
On a 180-inch buck, what do you think you're getting out of that?
60 pounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, when you're getting sausage, well, yeah, and when you're going to add pork and beef and all these other things into the ground or into the sausage or whatever, yeah, it comes out to be a lot more, but you're talking straight meat off of it,
Right.
So how many freezers do you have?
3. But I did have to go buy a new chest freezer when I got home because I wanted that real deep freeze, and then I put it in the garage. So
Yeah, you want to,
it took up a parking spot, but you know what? I got dinner.
Yeah.
for a few days.
Right.
That's awesome. All right, cool. All right. Well, what we're going to do right now, guys, we're going to take a quick intermission and we'll be back and we're going to get into some more talk here with Ben, but we're going to switch it up and talk about land management for a little bit here. So stick with us, guys. We'll be back within the next 10 minutes. All right, guys.
The hell was that?
I don't know.
It was like I think it was the spring for me adjusting this up to my face. But welcome back, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. Those of you that have. Once again, we're joined by Ben Krebs. We just got done talking a little bit about the buffalo hunt. We kind of cut it a little bit short there right before the intermission. But before we get into the next topic, what, if anything, did we miss, or is there anything else that like?
I would just say don't harass these guys. If you call them out there, don't. It was not a canned hunt by any means, and Jim River Guide Service was phenomenal. So don't be harassing these guys. Like you said, he gets a lot of negative comments.
Yeah.
Phenomenal human being, great family. They're good people. So
Definitely sound like it.
if you want to do it, reach out to him. He's not a BSer. His numbers are spot on. He's not going to upcharge you for something.
Right.
It is what it is the moment you talk to him, and he'll send you a letter. I mean,
Yeah.
just a great person that way. So
And I'm assuming, like you said, whether you go with Jim or somebody else, do your due diligence
be very careful going with somebody else.
in that, and research and take the time. I mean, you're spending a little bit,
A little bit of money.
just a little bit.
Yeah, it was,
a couple
it was
bucks.
it was under
So,
$5,000 or
I
something.
mean, and obviously, yeah, you wanna do your homework and make sure that whoever you're going with is on the up and up, and
And maybe
you're
it's
gonna
not
get
this
what you
guy.
pay for.
You could call him and you just don't like the way he talks on the phone. You know, that happens. So don't go with him then. Go with a guy that you trust, that you really know he's not BSing you.
yeah.
You know, just be careful with those people. They can do that. They want your money too.
I mean, and that goes for any guide service in general.
Right.
I mean, there's horror stories you hear all the time from you can have a really nice website,
Right.
and it can be a completely different story. So you want to check those reviews. You want to, maybe get in contact with other people that have been with this service, or
Yep.
So I mean, that's good. That's one of the nice things about doing something like this is you're putting a name out there for somebody that you fully trust and you had a great experience with.
Yep.
And honestly, like, I mean, following him on social media now, I mean, he's it's like 5-star reviews.
He's so busy.
Constantly. I mean,
so busy.
it's
So to that
Pretty
point,
impressive.
how far out did you have to book this?
I booked it out a year.
Okay.
So it actually worked out pretty good. So we did it. Yeah, it was January of last year, and we went January of this year. So yeah, it was 1 year. So wasn't too bad. But he can get booked up. You know, some years are better than others.
January. It was this January.
that he did this hunt.
I did this like 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. I
Yeah.
think, right?
Man, time flies. So I've only got like 17 months to wait for this mount yet.
Oh, is that all?
Is that how long it
That's
takes?
it. Yeah, I'm going by months.
Only about a year or so.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Year
all
and,
right.
and a couple.
Not too bad.
No, not at all.
It's worth it though. So
Absolutely.
awesome, really cool stuff. And thanks for sharing that experience with us. We definitely appreciate that, and hope you guys do as well. But another thing we wanted to talk and touch on a little bit is land management and that.
Right.
Now, as it is, you have hunting property,
Correct.
really close to us,
Yep.
to Drew and I, and Mike from the team, here in the kind of central part of Wisconsin, and but very different properties.
Very different.
I mean, what are we like? Maybe 5 miles.
As a crow flies, I
As a
would say
crow
5.
flies, and that, and you want to talk about 2 very different properties in terms of the layout, and I would say more so than anything, the soil.
Oh, absolutely, the soil.
And that where we're very sandy soil.
Yep.
As anybody who knows Wisconsin and knows the central part of the state, it's very, very sandy soil, and it's really it can be quite a challenge to get
grow
food
or do
plots
anything,
and grow
yeah.
things and stuff like that. Now, where you are, you're in a little more of a wet, kind of a swampy area.
Yeah, it's
And
low
that-
land. It's grassy. It's hasn't been turned over in years. You know.
right? But
Nobody's touched it.
you got dark.
Yeah, I'm pulling 6 to 7.5 on the pH.
Yeah.
We're pulling really well on there. So anything I put in, it takes off.
Sure. Do you want to talk a little bit about your property and
Yeah.
and
So
like from like what what it was from day one? Because now
Sure.
you've had it for how long?
We've owned it now 3 years. I leased it out the first year. So there's actually 4 years of ownership technically. And then one more year prior to that, we were just kind of looking at the property.
You were leasing it?
Well, no, the first year was just looking at. We couldn't even hunt it. So
Okay.
the way that went, we had an interest in this piece. We got to talking to the owner through some other people, got a connection, started talking. Unfortunately, her husband had passed away. He was passionate about hunting, loved hunting this piece, worked on it all the time. They didn't live there. They lived further north. I wasn't sure about it. I went out there and it was pretty wild. Now, he had passed away a couple years prior, so nobody had maintained it. Nobody did anything. Some people hunted it, whether it was relatives or maybe neighbors snuck on. Pretty wild. It was, you walk in there and it was like, gosh, this is just going to be a chore to get anything out of here. It's going to be a chore to shoot anything. But then I started rolling ideas. I listen to a lot of that Jeff Sturgis, watch his stuff. And just because it's something I enjoy doing, being a farmer as a kid, all I want to do is get back into that tractor and make changes of things and put the work in God's hands and let him make things grow. So that first year I had a little bit of a vision, but I also had cameras on the property. And then mind you, I could not hunt it. So we had cameras out there and I was seeing little bucks and little things. I'm like, man, this is just, it's not it. It's not the piece.
I remember when you first told me about it, like early on, you were kind of like, I don't know, like
Very hesitant.
Like the price might be right and things like that, but like, is this really going to be the piece that I want to?
And that was the kicker. It was the price. The price started out phenomenal, and then I won't go down that rabbit hole, but the prices changed, and we were like, man, I don't know. And she's like, why don't you take it for a year and hunt it? You can hunt it all on your own.
And that was
that was our lease, as I'll call it. But we didn't owe her anything for it. Just a kind, genuine person. She's like, just have these 40 acres, go out there and hunt it, and I'll deal with the family. They can fight with me over it.
Wow.
So that first year I'm out there, I'd mowed some trails, I put in some tree stands. I was just kind of keeping really low key, and I hunted the first few weeks, and being in a swamp, it stunk. Early season stunk. Like the first couple weeks, I'm like, this is awful. I really don't want to buy this. I remember sitting in one stand. I text Sarah. I'm like, this isn't it. This is not the piece. We're not seeing anything. She's like, just hold out to the rut. And thank God she said that, because I go back up there 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, and I was seeing buck after buck after buck after buck. And it was just constantly texting her. And I think it was to the point where she was just going to say, hey, stop texting me. One morning there was 20 some bucks, 40 plus does. It was just great. Some of them were good, some of them weren't. But I heard the stories from the neighbors that there's, this big buck, that big buck. And I knew big bucks get shot around there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and we've been hunting in the area for close to 20 years.
Right.
And then with this lease. Yeah, no.
Getting old.
It's at least 20 years.
That's
insane. To be honest. For the last couple of years, I've been like, it's like 18, 19. Well, and you know what? Now it's like 20 plus. Yeah. Time is a son of a bitch.
Yes, it is.
It is.
But what do you think was the difference from the property just that year from when you were hunting early season, saying this is not, and you're not seeing? How did that property change, or what about the deer movement do you think? What brought those? Why was that property so more active 4 weeks later?
So I don't know what it was that made it active 4 weeks later versus the year before, but I will say they changed the water levels up there on the lake, and you probably know about that with the dam. Yeah. When they changed that, there was a drastic deer change. Deer were constantly moving through my place because there wasn't standing water.
Sure.
So they were constantly going through there, which means the does were there, which means the bucks were coming to find them, and then all the neighborhood bucks want to come there. And it's a thick piece. It's tucked way back. It's a mile off the road, so it's exclusive. There's not going to be a lot of activity back there, human activity, cars, dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that made the first change. And then I'll never forget the buck that I saw. He came walking out. I thought I would get a shot at him, but when I grunted at him, he took off running, which immediately in my mind, I'm like, there's bigger deer. There's much bigger deer. And sure enough, the next morning I see this great big one behind me, and I'm waiting patiently, thinking I'm going to get a shot at him. And we're talking big.
Yeah.
Well, another one comes through, and I kind of lost my patience, and it was a really nice 8-pointer. So I took him, and I was happy with him. And that was our lease year. Mm-hmm. Then we were like, you know what? We're gonna go in on this. This is gonna work. This is gonna be great. And I started mentally preparing. And thank God for my son Abel. He knows computers like no other. So he turned me on to this Google My Maps. And I know everybody's into the Onyx and the Base Map, and those are great programs and they have great features to them. Google to me was free. So I used this Google My Maps, and I started laying things out how I wanted, where I wanted stands, how to access. Then I went ahead and I talked to the DNR, and I got them out there like, what about these ponds? What do you think of this? And there's a totally different story about a person who deals with ponds in the DNR and rivers and streams and lakes and everything versus a forester.
Even on like private property.
Yeah, because I brought both of them out at separate times. And the guy who does the lakes is like, gorgeous piece of wetland. You've got the best natural browse, blah, 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 going on and on. I get this forester out there, and this woman, phenomenal human being, comes out there, starts talking about, you need to change your property. She's like, look at this. We're standing here. We can see from one side to the other. She's like, deer don't want to be here. Not when it gets to winter, not when the leaves fall. You got to change. So we started following her process. And then we started following Jeff Sturgis and, doing different plantings and cutting different trees and tipping certain trees over so other trees sprout up. And it made a world of a difference.
And how soon did you start that process?
I started the first year we were there.
All right.
So I started cutting down trees, and say the biggest change was cutting down these poplar trees. She's like, you cut them all off in this whole group. Cut every single one off. Just stump them. Don't do hinge cutting. Don't do anything like that. It's all going to shoot up.
Just take them down.
Take them down.
And let them lay.
And she says, leave the tops, leave everything lay because it'll keep the deer from browsing on it. The next year, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of trees that have come up.
It's going to keep them from browsing on the new growth.
On the new shoots that come up. Yep.
They're gonna browse on what you toppled.
Right. They hit that, and then they can't kind of get in there because it becomes a big tangled mess. And
Yep.
so then the next year, this is 6 feet of growth out of this, and it's thick as can be, and that's where all the deer are. So her comments made sense, and then start planting food plots and doing things. And so we came from a property that would have bucks coming into it primarily that second week of October, kind of after the youth hunt. Even my son said, I don't want to go to youth hunting. There's never any bucks. This year, with all the changes, the tree plantings, the food plots, and the programs that we put in place, I could have killed bucks, shooter bucks that I wanted opening day and beyond. Now, some of them I just goofed up on or didn't take the shot or was at home sitting watching TV,
Right.
or I should have been up north, but, I didn't go. But just the plantings and that process. So it's not about just diving into a property and putting food plots in, and it's not about just going in and throwing out a bunch of trees. And you start communicating with people and talking to them who are industry professionals, or they're professionals in like forestry or anything of that nature. So that's where I got to give a big shout out to Wisconsin Bare Root Nursery. That's where I buy all my stuff. I used to buy through the DNR. Nothing wrong with the DNR. They're fine, whatever. Mm-hmm. Out of the thousands of trees I planted from the DNR, not a single one survived. Out of the trees that I got from Wisconsin Bare Root, and this is no lie, out of his trees, 100% success. Not one tree has died yet. And we're doing willows, we're doing pines, we're doing maples.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's a better program, and they probably, they get their trees and they treat them right. They put them in the right location. When you get them from the DNR, they're coming from this location, going to this location, then back to this location, and maybe they're just not maintained well enough. The temperature isn't right. Mm-hmm. But the folks at Wisconsin Bare Root, they put everything together, and it's close by too. So
what got you to go down that path to reach out to both the DNR and a forester? Was it your previous background as a farmer that maybe clued you into doing something like that, or was it more along the lines of? It
was one of my closest friends. He planted a lot of trees. That was his thing. Corey Wilcox was a really good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. A guy I used to go hunting with, take him out, do stuff. He's the man who inspired my beard, to grow it out like no other. And that beautiful soul, he's gone, So he always said, you plant trees, for the shade for others. That was his saying. And I think he took it from someone else or paraphrased it, but
Sure.
Taking that from Corey, and that love for trees and what they really are, and it's not just used for firewood or just a stick to stare at, or
Exactly.
there's more to it. And then when you really start diving into the weeds of it, you start thinking of all these different types of trees and what do they do and how do they structurally maintain things. And you plant these trees, they can actually dry your soil up. You plant these trees, they can add moisture to it. They can add nitrogen. So you start doing your research. And when I'm in a wetland, I want to get rid of that water.
Right.
You want to drain the swamp, as they say. You
And is that why the willow?
The willow, yeah.
Yeah.
That hybrid willow it's unbelievable. And once it goes, it goes. So I think I've got 10 feet of growth on those trees. So they started out at roughly 5 feet. They're 15 feet in 1 year.
Wow.
It's absolutely amazing.
So you researched your buffalo hunt.
Yep.
Your guide. You researched your property.
Yep.
And have you ever thought about stem cells? Just throwing it out there.
Nope, have not.
Hey, there
I'm
might
a big
be future
nerd,
there.
you know. What can I say? When
But
my wife
there's a lot to
leaves,
be said about that.
yeah.
I mean,
You do
doing your
research.
homework, right? And learning for yourself and not just taking everything at face value.
Right.
You know, getting deeper into it. That's awesome.
And there's a deep love to this when you watch how these things change and how deer move and manipulate. I mean, I put Abel in front of a nice buck this year. And unfortunately, the shot he made just wasn't enough to finish it off. So that's too bad for him. But then I scored. I've owned a muzzleloader now 22 years, 23 years, something like that. And I finally got my first buck with the muzzleloader this year. And that was all due to the changes that we made in that property. So
What if you were to narrow down to the top 3 things that you did on the property? What would those be?
So being that it was a flatter piece.
Well, first off, before we get into that, go into a little bit, describe the property a little bit more in depth.
Okay. So this piece.
We talked like it's wet and
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's wet. So it's a square 40.
I got to walk it
Yeah.
with you this year. You showed me, we walked all the way around and stuff, but this was a dry year though too.
And it'll be dry like that. It's usually not too wet, and that's due to the ponds that I have. So strategically placed throughout the property years ago, they put 7 ponds in this property. And that's to get the water to draw off.
To draw off and retain it, almost like
Retain and then
retention.
go to certain locations and then lead out to another reservoir that leads out to a lake. So it gets it off the property. In a way, it's draining the swamp, which they always tell you they don't want you to touch these wetlands and do things.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I started cutting into these pieces, you know, sometimes it'll get wet, but for the most part, it's pretty dry under there. I can till everything. I can drive a tractor out there. I can do all sorts of stuff.
That's true. Because I mean, initially, like when you had first told me about it, it's a swamp back there.
Yeah.
You know. All right. So go ahead and.
So now with the changes,
just kind of describe what it was.
Okay,
to
so
what it is now.
when they dug these ponds, they put, you know, the waste or the soil there, the spoils, everything from those ponds. They put them in weird locations, and then they just planted pines on it. And then they threw some crabapple trees, and they threw some other random things. And then you get your poplar that grow up, and, you know, they take off pretty well in that. They planted a lot of tamaracks, which are great trees, beautiful. But once they drop their needles, you got it like a vacant pine. It doesn't have anything. It's got no structure to it. So I like them, but I don't. So the property can get pretty open in some of those areas, but then you get the canary grass, which is everywhere on the property. It's 99% of the property is made up of canary grass and then some dogwood. So it's pretty open is what I would call it.
Yeah.
You know. So the biggest thing that we gained by changing things was putting in those willows. You get that structure where you get those trees that start to take off and they start to grow. Now you can no longer see across the property, which automatically changes how that property plays, because you used to walk in from one side, the deer on the opposite side could see you and they were gone.
Right.
So
Excuse me.
So you said how many trees did you end up planting?
oh man, I killed my wife and kids that one year. We did several thousand, which didn't take. And I think from Wisconsin Bear Root, I think I'm running right around 1,500 from them. This year I'm taking another 1,000, I think, or relatively close to that. So
And of what variety?
So this year we got some red maple, which take off well in wetter soil or you know, where their roots are going to have wet feet. They do well in that. We did some willow again. Kyle was really kind. He went to Iowa and he picked up these orange Osage balls. So they're kind of it's something that grows in Iowa, the weird orange balls. So you take these things, slam them into the ground, and they'll take off. They're kind of a thorny, thistly tree. So
Okay.
I want them because it's a good deterrent to keep people off your property too. You know, you put them on the perimeters where guys want to sneak into duck hunt or something.
Right.
So we're doing those, and then a lot of pear trees. We're going to dive into these pear trees. We're going to put them along the tops of the edges of the ponds. They're going to take off really well there, and within 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, we'll start getting good pears. You know, and the deer really like that. And then I don't have the maintenance. You know, an apple tree requires so much maintenance.
Yeah, so much trimming
And this tree, you know, I should say the property has got an enormous amount of apple trees. He did plant a lot. Some are crab apple, some are regular apple. What a chore. I mean, he was gone for 3 years. You know, the property sat, and I didn't do anything the first year to those trees. To cut those things and trim them, I would have been better off starting new.
Really?
Yeah, it was tough. It was a lot of work.
Huh.
Way too much work.
And I feel like a lot of people don't realize that sometimes, you know, like, oh, you just throw up an apple tree out and
I didn't realize.
and just let it do its thing. Like, no.
Never would have thought.
No, there's a lot of maintenance with them if you want to keep them alive.
Right.
Because the way they grow, and here in Wisconsin, you get the weight of the snow and that, you're just busting limbs and.
Well, and they'll draw in and they'll suffocate themselves.
Right.
So, and that's where, you know, I got to keep dropping this guy's name, Kyle, at Wisconsin Bear Root. You got a question on a tree or you don't understand something, just shoot him a message. He'll tell you. Those are really tough, or they won't make it in that soil. Mm-hmm. He's extremely knowledgeable. I don't know what his background is. All I did was find him on Facebook, met him, hit it off. Just great people, him and his wife.
It's invaluable to have somebody like that, you know, when you make a connection with somebody, whether it be, you know, something like you said with trees and stuff, or even on the food plot side of things.
Right.
Which leads me to my next thing. You went to town.
Yes, I did.
Putting food plots in on your property.
I did.
To the point where your wife is like, you're nuts with this.
Yeah, she said I was gone too much. I think I was somewhere between that 7 to 9 acres is where I was going to hit. You know, and that's a lot of that. That's, you know, you're looking at almost a quarter of that property is turned into food.
Yeah.
So, you know, like tonight, before I came here, I checked my cellular cameras. I had 16 or 17 different bucks in one plot. And then they all moved on. And then there was a whole bunch of does. So you get like 20 does. Then you get the coyotes. So
Real quick, though, not to change the subject, how many of them are hanging on?
a lot.
Racks? Really?
A lot. A lot of small ones have dropped. And some of them even dropped, you know, back at Christmas. I got a couple good shooters that are holding.
Huh?
Yeah.
February 1st.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
So we're gonna start getting out shed hunting pretty soon. I just don't want to bump them off because they're there.
Right.
So leave them alone. You know.
Yeah, you gotta wait till you start seeing them drop more a little bit. I'll come out there with you.
Oh yeah. Then we'll do some coyote hunting.
There we go.
I got to get rid of the coyotes up there. I don't know if anybody else has got problems in their land, but
Oh, we do.
man, it's a bad.
I would say it's a
It's
problem,
right.
but we have them. I mean,
Sure.
we have 'em for sure. And the only good coyote is a dead coyote.
You got it.
I feel like 2 years ago, it seemed to be 2, maybe even 3 was a bigger problem. It didn't seem quite as bad.
It's ramped
Yeah.
up a little bit.
It has ramped up.
It's ramped up a little bit by us. All right, not to change the subject here, but I just got to point this out real quick. This is funny. I think it was yesterday. Sometimes you're scrolling through Facebook and you'll see these things. It's like a suggested page to follow.
I don't want to know what you're.
And it was it was a page out of Door County, Wisconsin, Sturgeon Bay specifically, right? You know, and to be honest with you, I haven't been up there in a long time. Just don't really have any reason to really to go there a whole lot. But anyways, it was about this big den, coyote den, somewhere in Sturgeon Bay, really close to a very popular sledding hill for kids.
Oh, nice.
And that. And so I'm like, well, so I clicked on it real quick and I wanted to look at the comments, and I was absolutely floored by the comments in this about all these people. I actually, at one point I'm like, is this, because that's what it was. It didn't say Sturgeon Bay, it said Door County.
Okay.
And I commented, I'm like, is this Door County, Wisconsin? Based off these questions. And like people are like, yep, yes. I was like, did Door County, Wisconsin become the new Dane County? Like, what is with you people? Like, all these comments about, like, oh, leave them alone. Why would you post this on there? Now you're going to have people trying to get rid of them and kill them and that. They were around before we were. Like, people are more of a problem than they are. I'm like,
God.
I just want to comment to everyone. I'm like, you're right. People are more of a problem. How about we start with you? How about you remove yourself? You know, like, I was absolutely dumbfounded. I'm like, I didn't know. I'm like, this is Wisconsin, right? This
Save
isn't
the
Dane County.
coyotes.
Yeah.
Save the coyotes. I'm like, do you guys understand that there is a 365 day a year, 24/7 open hunt? You need a small game license. If you're a private landowner, you don't even need one. If they're a nuisance animal on your property, they don't care.
Right.
There's no bag limit. There's nothing.
Right.
Take them all out. Like, oh my God, they're not hurting anything.
Yeah,
Oh,
they are. Well, okay.
Anyways, but I was like, I don't know why like we started talking about coyotes, but I'm like, I saw that yesterday. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is Wisconsin. Grow up,
That's
people.
crazy.
Anyways,
So this whole thing with bringing up the property management was last year I was doing a lot of work and my tractor failed on me, broke. Thank God I got a buddy who's got one. I wasn't able to get food plots in for Scott or help him do it. The whole point to bring this up is just to force you to go, yeah, Ben, pull the trigger. We're going to do it. So I know there's some hurdles you got to go through, but let's do that this year. Let's make sure it happens. I got the tractor. I got the things going.
covered. The hurdles are covered.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah,
We're good.
good. So, you know, and for anybody who's like, what do you want to do food plots for? It's not just for deer. I mean, the amount of other animals that came in since these food plots, you know, we're seeing coyotes, we're seeing pelicans, or not pelicans, whatever they are, cranes. We're getting all sorts of stuff in there.
Pelicans, cranes,
It's the same
flamingos.
damn thing. I want to shoot
We
them.
got some flamingos that have been showing up.
There
around
has
these,
been
right?
flamingos out there, yes.
No, but that's a really, really good point because I think when some landowners or if you're leasing a property or something like that, they might be somewhat resistant.
Yeah.
Right.
Thinking that you're going to turn a property into like a piece of farm property.
Right.
And that where it's quite the opposite in a lot of ways because you're not just benefiting the deer.
Right.
You're going to benefit a lot of the wildlife. And it's not necessarily we're going to put corn in. Well, that's one thing you could plant, but when we're talking food plots and land management in terms of creating a better habitat for wildlife in general.
Right.
Whether you're going to put in wildflowers or sunflowers and things like that, it's going to benefit the birds, the bees, all your
Absolutely,
pollinators and
pollinators.
stuff like that. I mean, one of the big things, like when I talked with our landowner who we lease with, he was concerned about one of the areas that we were talking about doing. He's like, well, the milkweed out there
Oh, sure, for the
for the
butterflies.
monarchs,
Yeah.
and that. And I'm like, well, we can avoid those areas. I mean, that's the thing. We don't have to do a square.
Right. It doesn't have to look pretty like you see on TV. It doesn't have to be this special thing that's no weeds. You can't have weeds in it. Because believe it or not, the deer like the weeds too.
Right.
They'll eat that too. So get a nice clover in there. It gets a lot of things. Brings a lot of deer.
And that's the thing is, so that one spot that you know what I'm talking about too.
Yep.
I took you out there. I mean, it's nothing.
Right. There's no value in that piece.
It's not serving really any purpose other than
A pine snake's going to lay out there and sunbathe.
right.
Because there's nothing there. It's desolate right now.
It's very desolate in this big area. It's like this. We're going to start putting more nutrients in the ground, nitrogen and things like that. That's going to help benefit everything, the property as a whole.
Absolutely.
More wildlife. It'll be better for turkeys. It'll be better for everything.
Right.
Turkeys.
It's coming soon.
Not soon enough.
No, it isn't soon enough. It's never soon enough.
Yeah, so that's another thing too. Actually, I didn't even think to mention that turkeys. They were non-existent on my property. Non-existent. You would never see a bird back there. Last year we had maybe a half dozen toms. Finally. We had 2 tags, and my son's like, let's go get them. And I'm like, nope, we're not doing it. So I made him stay here and hunt here because we had a tag here and we had a tag up there. And I said, no, we're not shooting anything up there.
Not yet.
We got to let them come back. So, take that to mind too, that if you don't have them on your property,
Don't force it.
back off. Go to a piece of public. Go find another buddy who's got a piece of land, but don't force it. Yeah.
And we had a similar situation a few years back, and I don't know if it was just in general, but the predators, we were having bobcats and coyotes frequenting the property a lot more, but we were seeing a large swath of jakes.
Sure.
In that. And it's like, you know what? Let's just
Wait,
next year.
hold on.
Another year or two. And
Can I sidetrack you on the bobcat thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
How long does it take to get a tag?
It's a good question.
That is a great question.
Because honestly, I haven't had interest, but yeah, we have them frequent. Our
I get them on
property.
mine now. Never had them before. Kind of a cool animal. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
it's a massive house cat just chilling outside. And Count on to bring it home and have it on the wall to pet all the time. And I don't have to feed it.
Or change a litter box.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know. And if anybody's watching still,
Yeah,
if
please.
anybody knows, feel free to comment. But I'm not really entirely sure.
No, I have no
Let's
idea.
find out. Let's get one.
So years ago, we used to actually, the land that we leased was also leased out to a trapper as well.
Okay.
And we ended up having to kind of put the kibosh on that. As much as we appreciated that aspect of it,
It's
you can't-
invasive.
It's too invasive for the deer hunting aspect of it.
Now, on mine, it works, but I can't do it because I don't live there.
Right. I mean, because you got to be checking those
Every day
traps
you gotta
every
check
day.
them.
So it's way too intrusive, and we're like, and the landowner said that's fine.
Yeah.
we'll do.
But by
he
anybody
was
listening that's a
concerned.
trapper, it's okay. We love you.
Oh,
We love you.
absolutely.
You're a great
Yes.
person.
100%. I have nothing against trappers.
Yep.
It's actually
I
something
enjoy doing
would-
it too.
I would love to learn more about and maybe get into it a little bit more. Or get into it at all, I should say. I've never trapped a day in my life.
But since
Got
then,
one coyote.
we've seen a definite change.
There's been an influx of
Absolutely.
coyotes and stuff, and
So there it is. It's important to have those guys. So guys who are
100%.
listening, make sure you're still doing it. Don't quit just because your neighbor's got a dog running loose.
right.
Warn 'em
And
enough times
Yeah.
and-
And if there is somebody who's an avid trapper out there, like, see, this is exactly why we,
Yep.
Yeah.
you don't want us out there.
You know what? I'd be willing to work out a deal with somebody on my piece, but I got to know them. You know, if you want to do it, I'd work something out with somebody. I've had neighbors who ask,
at
but
certain times.
right. Well, your best trapping is like this time of year, and I think it ends shortly. You know, this is when your hides are the best; they're not slipping.
Yep.
You know, and you could work that deal out. That would be kind of beneficial. The problem is, you got to watch those guys who do the trapping and the deer hunting, because then it's all of a sudden, well, I was checking traps, then I was getting sheds, and you know, they're crossing boundaries. So
Yeah.
I got neighbors who've asked, and I won't let them, but maybe I'll find that right person that, or if I move up there, you know.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So
Any thoughts on doing that?
I don't know. Is Sarah still on? Yeah, actually, I think we will. No, more than likely, I'd like to, or buy another piece. You know,
Yeah.
you like to say that the piece you buy is always a piece you're going to keep, but realistically, we talked about it. Maybe we'd sell it to the kids right when they get out of high school, and they can just pay us and let them build equity and do their own thing. And Sarah and I will just move on to the next thing.
And that's all this piece you ever wanted for is just for hunting.
Correct. Yeah, you can't build on this one. It's a non-buildable.
Yeah.
The 40 next to it is buildable. I've been speaking with the owner, and maybe he'll sell to me, maybe he won't. You know,
Sure.
I definitely won't pressure him to do anything he doesn't feel comfortable. But if he wants to sell it to me, you know, by all means, we'd like an opportunity. So
Yeah. In terms of food plots that you have out by you, and the soil situation, what have you found to work best out by you?
So believe it or not, I did clover down here in Washington County, and I got a really bad taste in my mouth for it. The deer would come in maybe till September, and then they were done with it. You just wouldn't see them anymore. They wouldn't come in. So I didn't want to do clover up there for the longest time. So I was always Brassica. You know, and you stick to that one brand that you've used that worked, whether it's a Fleet Farm bag or whatever. And then somebody's like, hey, you know, you should really try this company out. And so I tried other brands and tried different things, and come to find out, clover's really good up there. Clovers work really well. The deer are always in it, and they're in it from summer until, late October. And then it's on to the brassicas, and then they're out there eating the turnips and everything, and sound like they're eating apples as they're walking through. And I can't find anything for winter though that stays.
I don't think that area has as much natural clover
No,
as,
not with the,
as you do down here to an extent. You know
right.
what I mean?
You're going to get that. You're going to get your grasses up there, your winter wheat and stuff, because it's just something that grows. I mean, a guy could grow that in his driveway if he wanted.
Without trying.
Clover is it's kind of finicky for a little bit, and then it gets better. And that's part of the reason I didn't like it. But then once you learn, don't spray it so much, just mow it. That works. And then after a while, you don't even have to mow it anymore. It'll just choke everything out, and it takes over. But buying the right clover is a big thing too. Making sure you get the right clover. Because I bought the cheap bags, and then I bought, some more well-known names, and I still don't think they're very good. If you get them from like a co-op, that's where I've had a lot of success.
You want clover, man. I know a perfect spot.
Don't tell me your yard.
Yes, my yard. Come get it all.
Mine look like that too this
I
year.
wouldn't have a damn yard.
And then you saying you're doing turnips and radishes and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, the radishes were hammered off really quick. I was surprised. Actually, even when they were greening and sprouting out, they were just nipping the tops off. So for something with whatever's in that leaf, they like it. Mm-hmm. So unless you're doing a lot of radishes.
And when are you noticing that they're hitting that late October, early November?
No, the radishes, they were hitting the top as soon as they were greening. And I planted August. So by September, they were hammering that off, chewing it down to nothing. The brassicas, they really started hitting. Yeah, that one food plot, we'll call it a field even, it's so big. It's like just shy of 3 acres. They weren't hitting that until mid-October to late October. Yeah, then they started hitting that, and then they were kind of avoiding that clover. They were staying away from there. And those are strategically placed in the property, too, for like timeline of when you can get into things and directional wind. And
that's something.
I am a nerd this way, like to a T. Like my wife leaves the house, the first thing I do is I go diving for the YouTube to get more channels. She calls it my hunting porn or whatever. She obviously doesn't know about the other channels I watch, but
She's still on.
no, that's truly what I do. I like watching that stuff, and I like listening to a lot of guys, not just one guy, because one guy will counteract what the other guy is saying. Mm-hmm. You got to kind of put it together in your own piece too.
It can be nerve-wracking.
Would this quantify as more research?
It's research. Yes, it is research.
All right. So the one takeaway that we have from tonight.
Well, I think you always got to be researching. I mean, you're always trying to learn what you don't know.
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
And even then, still learn
and
more.
You're still not even sure if you know what it is. How many plots do you have out there now?
I believe it's 7 different plots.
Jeez.
And access is so key to each one of those areas.
It is streamlined. Actually, there are some of them I won't hunt. I will not sit over
just
them.
there.
They're just there. But they're great because it'll lead something from one to another.
Yeah.
Sure.
And a fine example of that is I can look over my one stand and I can see into the neighbors and I can see a long ways. And I watched a buck stand up October 21st. The minute he stood up at like 300 yards, I'm like, he's mine. Now I'm not talking 300 yards like out in South Dakota, a half mile. This is actually this is actually 300 yards. I knew it was 300 yards, and he came in and he did exactly what I thought he would. But came in, he had 2 busted tines, so I was like, well, he's got to be let go.
Sure.
So,
and do you plant those strategically as far as what you think they would hit first?
yes,
Like they're gonna stage up maybe on this plot and then move into this one. This is going to be the premier plot that you want to kill them over.
And one other thing you got to, for me, it's a lot of thinking about, but I think about my son and my wife and how they can access, because neither one of them want to walk all the way across a 40-acre property or all the way around and do all this. So you kind of put those to the front, and then you know when they're going to hit them, and then that helps those two not have to go so far in and walk so far. And
That's really taking that strategy to a whole nother level.
it's
You're
the
not
nerdiness.
but that's awesome. That really is. That's pretty neat that you
Yeah.
have it that far down to a science of thinking about everybody else on the property as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's like tree stand position. You got to think about that. That's another one. My wife's left-handed. She's the only one left-handed in the household. So
It's the same thing with Chad too. I mean, that's why there's certain stands. It's like, this is a great spot, but the stand sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're left-handed, it's like it's useless. Like,
Yep.
You know. But so Ben came out this last summer and that walked the property and that we pinpointed some spots that need to be brush hogged out and that, and there's gonna be some nice spots for kill plots.
Yep.
Some staging areas to get out, you know, before they head out to the alfalfa fields during the early season and stuff. And then that area up in the front there,
Yeah.
you know.
Sounds like we
it'll-
got some work to do.
We do. We got some work to do.
It'll be fun. I love it. It's a joy for me to sit on that machine and put hours on it. You know, if it's sitting in the garage, I can't justify why I have it.
Right.
So
Exactly. It'll be. We're excited about the changes we're going to be doing to the property this year for sure.
Absolutely.
bet.
And because it's so vastly different, you know.
Oh yeah.
What we're going to be planting and whatnot is going to be different than what he's got going over there. by
Oh,
him.
yeah, right.
And I think it's going to be time, you know.
Right.
We're not going to plant something that this year is going to be a banger. It's going to be going back to the years of when Mike and I were putting plots out there. It took years, and then all of a sudden, boom, we finally got something going in that. But then it was like, it's just not, if you don't have the equipment to constantly being able to do that, that's where work gets really tough.
Well, and that's where I'll be your backbone. I'll help you with all the equipment, get that done, and then you guys just focus on what you want in there, and we just get it done.
Yeah,
You know, we can hammer it out. So
it's going to be good.
Right
you
on.
bet.
All right. Well, Ben, do you got anything else?
Just remember Wisconsin Bear Root Nursery, man. Those guys are great.
Awesome.
And I get nothing out of it, so
Yeah.
but they're just really good, smart people. So if you want somewhere to just start and then move on from them, that's your choice. But
Sure.
I'll tell you, they are great.
Love it.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here for tonight. And Ben, thanks again for
Yes.
joining us.
Yeah,
here.
thanks for having me.
Thank you
We'll
very
definitely
much.
have to have you come back again, probably this summer or something like that.
Let's do that.
Kind of do an update on what's going on with your property and what's going on with ours. And
Take some drone shots and
yeah, absolutely.
All right.
kind of play around a little.
It'll be fun. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode. I want to just real quick point out that we might be changing things up here just a little bit in terms of we might be going away from the live episodes. Although I feel like, as far as I know, we haven't had any technical issues tonight. We do have a guest lined up for our next episode. Isaac Lassick is going to be on here. We're going to be talking about fishing. But we might be shifting towards pre-recorded shows and then live streaming those.
And that's the next show's 2 weeks
2
from
weeks.
now.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now. Well, let's just see how this one played out.
Yeah, we'll see.
There
how
you
it
go.
goes, so. But we're going ice fishing this weekend. We're going to try
Yes.
to anyways. On
Where?
a couple inches, we'll get out there.
We're going to go slush fishing this weekend.
Yeah, we're going to get out in the slush and
Yeah.
see what happens. If nothing else, we'll be doing some.
Team bonding.
We'll go with that. Team bonding, but hopefully everybody else is enjoying themselves in the outdoors right now. If you have some ice, get out there on it while you can.
Yeah.
Safely.
Been kind of a crazy winter. Yes, don't drive out there with your truck.
Good God,
Probably
no.
don't take an ATV or sled out
Don't
on
do
it.
that
even.
either.
But if you can, get out there safely. Enjoy yourselves. And as always,
Always outdoors.